meeting for the Carson City Consolidated Municipal Historic Resources Commission, July 31st, 2025. I'll call for a roll call.
Chairperson Drews, Vice Chair Schmitter, Commissioner Block,
Here.
Commissioner Darney, Commissioner Smith, Commissioner Wright. A quorum is present.
Spalda's here too. Did you call mine? Spalda?
Oh, sorry, no, Commissioner Spielda.
I'm here.
Sorry about that.
At this time, I'd like to invite any public comments on related to any matters over which the public body has supervision, control, jurisdiction, or advisory power. Are there any public comments? Seeing none, I'll move to meeting items. Number 4A, HRC 2025-0241 for possible action, discussion, possible action regarding the request from Lorraine Morgan, applicant, to replace all existing windows in the house located on a parcel zone residential office RO located at 402 West Robinson Street. So that's our parcel number 003-23604. At this time, I'd like to invite staff report.
Thank you. Heather Ferris for the record. The house is known as the Cavil House and is located at the northwest corner of West Robinson and North Division Street. It was built in 1907 and is a composition of classical revival shingle and colonial revival styles. The applicant is requesting to replace all of the windows in the home. This was part of a larger request considered by the commission earlier this month on July 2nd. At that meeting, the commission deferred the decision on the replacement of the windows until such a time as additional information is received about the condition of the existing windows. On July 10th, 2025, Chair Drews, Commissioner Smith, and Hope Sullivan, the Community Development Director, met with Sharon Roberts on site to view the condition of the windows. Following that meeting, the chair requested this special meeting for the HRC to reconsider the request. While the chair was unable to attend, he did provide his observations and thoughts in the late material provided to the commission. The applicant is proposing, again, to replace all windows with wood-framed aluminum-clad windows to match the existing design. Per the guidelines, bronzed aluminum frame windows are not appropriate in this application. Therefore, staff is recommending approval of the replacement of the windows, subject to a condition of approval requiring frames to be wood without aluminum cladding and requiring the existing trim to be reused or replicated. With that, I'm available for questions, and the applicant's representative is here as well.
The applicant would like to come forward and say whatever you need to say. Hello.
There you go.
I'm obviously not the best public speaker either.
No, not necessary here.
I am 30% owner of the home, and we have spent the past 2 years really considering what to do and how to restore it properly. And we have not had any luck at all finding someone to restore the windows. That would be obviously our first choice because it is very costly to do. So after the committee came over and reviewed the bottom ones, it's still very difficult to get them functioning and sorry, I'm nervous, get them functioning and also, efficient, energy efficient. So we just would like to replace them. And I brought 2 examples from several different companies that, as I was directed by Heather and Hope, that it needed to be wood with no vinyl cladding. Is that correct? So either of these can be done, and the lamb's tongue sash can also be duplicated exactly. Lorraine, the primary owner, she's been a realtor for over 30 years, and we've worked together, and we've done a lot of homes. Nothing historic, but the caliber of homes that we have done is pretty good. And we, obviously, we've had lots of offers to buy the home, but we are taking on this as a labor of love because her parents owned it. And we have spent a lot of time there. She has, and my family has. So she's planning on retiring there. So it's not, we're not selling the home, and it's not going to be done halfway. And we would prefer not to. The suggestion was made to replace some windows, and not all. We are like, okay, if the bottom ones have to remain, that's fine. But the top ones, it's also they're lead. We can't find anyone to work on them. So. That's pretty much I have to say. If we can come to a happy medium on just even the upstairs, we'd be happy with that. That would allow us to move forward, not lose the contractors that we've set up, because we really didn't know this process would take this long. But we have put a lot of thought, time, and consideration into doing it properly.
Now, do you have a preference between the two styles?
No, not at all. There's 3 different companies that do this type of work. It's very hard to even find people who do the wood on wood. But this right here is wood with an actual like vinyl covering, but we wouldn't do the vinyl covering. We would reproduce this one. And also the lamb's tongue. We found a company in the UK that can duplicate exactly, can work with a subsidiary of Anderson Windows and duplicate exactly that window, like exactly, like with the number of panes and everything. So we would just do what is recommended with the spoon, the spoon handle here and the lamb's tongue, and however many panes are in each window. Upstairs, we would replicate them exactly.
Okay.
Don?
Uh,
Go ahead.
I'm going to speak a little bit on Mike's observations because I went through the house with Mike, and I agree with the content of what Mike gave us in late materials. The windows, but I have a little slightly different interpretation. The house was built in 1907, and when I opened some of those windows, I'm fairly certain that those windows have been modified because when I look at the cords and the metal tracks, these were just not available in those days. And the white rope cords look like they're a year old. I know they're much older than that, but if they haven't been used, but beyond that, and we struggle with windows on this board a lot. And I just think that we have to give people an alternative. We want these homes restored, and I want to thank them. I went through that house, and I'm glad I didn't have a checkbook with me because I wouldn't have any money. But this is a huge undertaking, and I'm the one, I tend to preach up here about don't come in here and tell me you have budget problems. That's not our concern. And this isn't about budget. This is about being realistic. I'm terribly sad that we don't have the craftsmanship available to us that maybe we had 20 years ago. I did speak with Bill Miles twice about this as late as today. I just think that we have to give people a reasonable alternative, and Mike kind of puts that in his last sentence in his materials too. This is the same window that we let Dick Whipley put in his remodel. The one thing the caveat that I would like to add, and it's picked up a little bit in the staff report, is I'm willing to say, okay, change windows, but please, this creates another problem. Everything's a domino effect. Please preserve the windows as you take them out so that maybe there's an opportunity that we have a place that we can put these windows, that somebody that wants to take the time and has a craftsman that can restore those windows could do that. But I'm of the opinion we've got to start giving. I mean, if they came to us on siding and it was a beveled siding and water damage to the bottom, we would have no problem with them going to a miller and having them make you the same siding to put on the building. It's not original, but the intent. And I think that's what we're trying to preserve the historic portions of Carson City. And I think sometimes maybe we get in our own way with people don't do it because it's too hard. We can't get the people to do it. And so I'm in favor of allowing the replacement of the windows, but I would sure like to see the windows that are there somehow meticulously removed, and so that we could store or find another place to use those. My 2 cents.
Can I say something really quickly?
Yes, go
I,
ahead.
I have two people who want the windows, and someone is going to meet me over at 3:00. One is a estate sale person. I have their contact information, and they want to repurpose the windows. I don't know for what, but I have their information here if that is helpful to you.
Do they want mine that I'm still storing when I did this?
Well, there's a whole lot of them too. I was like, what are you going to do with them? So I don't know.
Actually, I would be interested in the name of that person so
Her
that I
name is
could, because
Patty.
I'm tired of storing them and I need the space. So.
Okay.
I think like we say, we take them out meticulously, store them, put them in every vintage market, put cutesy paint on them, maybe a flower box on the bottom. Yeah, I've got probably another 20 windows that if anybody wants, out of buildings that are torn down. But, you know, Don, your point's well taken. My house was built in 1875, and I, by the way, I do have a resource for her for the glass, the glazing, and also for fixing the ones that are in Mike's letter that are really bad. I remember Mike referencing the article in Old House Magazine that if you put a storm window on the windows, that barrier, you're going to recoup your energy savings. The energy savings that you recoup will pay for that. These will never pay for themselves. Have gone through the trenches and fixed all these and taken a windowsill out and replaced just the sill, adding the ends to the sills when everything was cut off, taking windows that are screwed shut, glued shut, and also caulk shut, and fixing them. It's a way to retain it. And I'm just looking at what our guidelines are, that original windows must be retained and repaired when at all possible. And, you know, even you talk about money not being our concern. This is a big project. God knows I wouldn't want to undertake it after what I went through. But if there isn't somebody in Carson City, which I know of two right now, there's people in Reno, there's people in Virginia City, maybe even Sacramento. But, you know, yes, they were modified and fixed 50 years ago to make them work. They were doing aluminum tracks 70 years ago. That's very true. One of the windows in my house, they had a cable with a spring that was retractable, and that was almost impossible to find. But I think it's doable, and that's why I just, you know, I'm glad that someone's making a lamb's tongue, because the house that Peter Smith did over on 4th Street, no more lamb's tongue. I don't know if your windows over at your place had the lamb's tongue on them. You know, the place that we're talking about doesn't have lamb's tongue on the first floor, but it does the second floor, so that makes me feel better. But it's not the easiest thing having these old houses. It's not for everybody. You see people move into the district that want an old house, but they actually want a new house. And so I'm in favor for giving Sharon and Lorraine a couple of resources that I know of, see what they can work out with those people before they go to the expense of this. When I ordered Andersons for my modern garage, they're $1,600 a piece, and they don't even have a divided light in it. So, and then the cost of install, someone ripping out the old stuff, saving it, it gets very costly. Those are my 15 cents.
Yeah, I just want to make one more comment. You talked about putting the storm windows on there. I would so prefer to see a good replacement window than to fix the old ones and put an aluminum. I mean, it just destroys, I think, what we're trying to do. We can't prevent the storm window being put on there, and they just completely take away from everything.
Well, then, and I agree with you, and my solution was instead of storm windows, Hunter Douglas shutters on the inside, and it gives you that barrier. And they're, instead of $28,000 on the first floor of my house, they were $4,500. So there are solutions to some of this stuff.
And if I can comment, you wouldn't need storm windows on the front, you wouldn't need storm windows on the front porch, the windows that are underneath the protective front porch and the sides. So from my perspective, it would be nice to save the original windows on the front of the house and under, especially around the porch where people will walk up and see the original windows, even if they don't open easily and things like that. And hopefully in the few years maybe, or down the road, we'll find a craftsman that could fix them so that they function better for you. The upper windows I know are in poor condition. They've had a lot more weather beating on them, so I understand that need and that immediate need to get those replaced. And so those, seems like they would be more appropriate for replacement. And then the lower windows, if they're not in completely falling apart stage, that maybe you could phase this into doing the upper windows first and then taking a little breather and then looking at the bottom ones and seeing if we could find some other solution for either replacing them or maintaining some of them, at least the front ones on the front porch. So that would be my recommendation.
Michelle, are you still in there in the room with us? Did you have any comments?
I am in the room. I appreciate Mike's write-up, and thank you, Don, also for going there. I agree with what Luann just said.
Thank you.
I like the idea of trying to use as many windows as possible in the front and change as few as possible in the front, and let the sides and the north face be new, if that's possible, to do sort of a hybrid. Because, and personally, I'm right with you, Don, that we don't put any of those storm windows in front. It just completely takes away from the look that is there now and that we're trying to preserve. I mean, true divided lights are really, really expensive. That's all there is to it. The company we used for ours was called Weather Shield. It's out of Wisconsin, I think. I don't know if you've looked at them. It's not just Anderson and Pella that does these nice windows. So you could look at that too. But I prefer to preserve as many as possible, but I'm not sure it's fair to go 100% preserve.
I don't think that's what we're asking for. We understand the issue of having windows that actually work and not having craftsmen that can rebuild windows in place. And so, and the upstairs windows obviously need attention sooner than later. So those are the higher priority. Some of the bottom windows, like on the front porch, that don't have storm windows, that are in relatively good condition, I would assume, just because they've been protected from the weather.
Yes.
Would be my highest priority to maintain in place as the original windows. And then perhaps giving you the latitude to look at other windows as you go down the road and replace things. But maintaining that facade is pretty important, I think, at this point, and is maybe a good compromise between replacing them all just wholesale and maintaining some of the original materials. And then maybe in a couple of years, you'll learn that you love those older windows and want to see them.
I do love those windows, and I would be, at this point, I would be very happy to leave the first floor as is and work around and get the suggestions from other people, and if we can move forward with the top windows, that would be
And maybe
great.
the like you said, the north side that's facing onto the back driveway, maybe those windows that aren't on a public facing wall could be replaced too. I mean, those are the priorities that we would see: the front first, the east side second, as priorities for maintaining the original windows, the west and the north. Nobody's going to see those particularly from a distance or from the street scene. So those are the lower priority ones,
Yes.
so that those ones you could replace.
The biggest priority for us especially are the bedrooms upstairs, because those windows contain lead and they're just not pretty and they don't function, so the, leaving the downstairs as is, for right now, and then taking any advice or any recommendations that anyone has to, because those are beautiful ornate windows. And we would do everything we can. And that's a very happy medium for us, is just being able to do the upstairs, and the sleeping areas and.
Okay.
I tend to agree with the direction the conversation has gone as far as the prioritization. The two in the front, I think there's two. Is that correct? Three in the front. The front windows, I would like to see you try to do something with, and maybe take Jed's, if he's got connections, to find somebody that can help with those. I do completely understand with the other comments about the prioritization, the north and the east, if you can save those on the ground floor, on the east side, for sure, the front. The rest of the house, we have allowed, because they're not visible nearly as much or at all. Those probably, we wouldn't have a problem with you replacing with what you're proposing here. Like I said, I think we ought to make a stipulation on approval of the windows need to be retained and offered. So anybody that wants either in whole or for parts to rebuild another window.
Okay.
And I don't know what anybody realized what we had done before as far as, given a timeline on that, try to put something out for 30 days, and after that, do what you want with them. We just require did we require them to be stored or given to us, or what, do you remember what we had done in the past?
I believe.
It's like I said, it just creates, got to find a place and,
Well, that's it. I mean, but I'm thinking that we ought to ask them to at least maintain or retain them.
Perhaps the
certain amount of
applicant,
time.
while they're waiting to remodel the garage, could store those. And, with a little help with things like Craigslist, things like that, somebody
Yeah. Is
nationally
that
would.
a problem for you as far as
Not at
temporary
all.
storage for a certain, I don't know,
Not at
what,
all.
60 days or something?
Not at all.
To attempt to see if there's anybody out there. Yeah.
I have just
include
a
in there.
comment, I guess. When Carlita Ray replaced all but the round windows in the Brower bathhouse, she was required to store them. Julian Smith and Don Harmer bought the building and threw them all in the dumpster. We tend to want people to save stuff, but Mike and I have been talking for years. They've got a bunch of windows at Silver Saddle Ranch. They can't take anymore. It's really too bad that nobody here locally, I mean, you have to go down into California to find these places where people store all this stuff. If you're gonna let them replace the windows, I don't think there should be a requirement of keeping them, because they get banged around and you're saving the sashes. You're not really saving the entire window or the frame. Are they gonna redo the sills, the frames, all the framework and everything that goes with it? Because without that, what are the windows worth? And if you want sash cord weights, I got tons. I've got tons of windows, but that's the dilemma.
I like I said, it's a domino effect, we could ask the attempt be made, though.
What I'm alluding at is that,
I'm
I'll
a
ask you
pat
time
rat.
for the
I
attempt
I
to be
collect
made.
everything, but
yeah.
I,
I think that's the fair thing. If we give you some kind of a timeline that's acceptable, like 60 days, if in that time no one has any interest in them at all, then I think you can be just free to do as you choose, like any other person has done. Like I said, it doesn't sound like these are a rarity that we're hurting for them. I would think there would be some value in parts for somebody rebuilding, but apparently parts are readily available also. So it's all about the burden of storage that, it sounds like you have a deal going that you might be able to get rid of
Yes.
most of them
Yes.
anyway.
Yes. I
I'd
believe
like
she
to
will.
hear the outcome of that.
Yeah, because she knows a couple of the people in the antique malls here.
You're right.
And so she has, a few here, a few there, and so I think
I
she'll
think
be
if
able,
you're
for the most part.
keen to doing something like that, I think we all would agree with that.
And just be aware, you can't take them to someplace like Habitat for Humanity, because they're not double pane windows.
Right.
I had a bunch of 50s casement windows, and they said, sorry. Someone was out in the back saying, hey, we're building a greenhouse. So I took out the 1954 casement windows, and the back windows in the house, I had them built new, single pane, rattly, double-hung windows. And it was quite a bit more affordable just to have a brand-new window made to match the originals that were gone by 70 years.
The other thing we contend with, and what makes it hard to use older windows in new construction, and depending on the level of remodeling you do even to an existing home, now we have new energy standards. We have to pass this thing called the blower door test, which means the air in your house can only recirculate from the outside, I think, 4 times in an hour. There is absolutely no way, no way one of those windows would make me fail. I couldn't put them in a new house. You cannot
Yeah, no,
get them to work in that condition.
they'd only be acceptable in a rehab or a rebuild of a historic home or something, yeah.
Not till January 1st, Don.
Yeah, we also would have
No,
problem.
that code has been, I've been doing blower door tests for the last 4 years.
Oh, no, I understand that, but why would you put 1870 windows in a brand-new house? That's kind of, I don't think that would
We've
happen.
also run into problems with the fact that there's.
Amazed the number of people that ask for stuff like that, and we have to tell them we can't. You know,
Until they find the bill.
I don't understand the requirement. Will you say that again? 4 times circulating, what is the
That's an air
requirement?
change requirement, how many times the air can be replaced in the home in a certain time period. The problem we have now, today, it's actually gone the other way. Homes are so tight that it's dangerous to be that tight. In other words, the air stays too long, it becomes stagnant.
No, I'm not going to be the most popular person here today, but I would hope that they would save the windows they can, but I'm willing to make the motion and put it to a vote as it's been drafted by staff.
I would,
Don,
I would
I'm sorry.
recommend first taking public comment.
Yes,
As
I'm
I
gonna do that.
think we have a couple members.
Don, if you're willing to do that, I'd like it to have that. Yeah, I'll get on that. Any public comments on the subject? Hearing none, back to Don. I would just ask that we include something that the front windows be retained.
They're here for the entertainment factor.
Finally.
No? No problem. Oh, go ahead. I'll,
One I went through with Mike, and I do believe that some of those windows could be saved. I think the worst thing that we can have, though, is where we use 2 that we can save, and we put 2 right next to it that are new. I can see that from the street. So
I would have to be an
I
alderman
would,
on that. Yeah.
I would, and I'm not even going to put up my motion, I would leave it up to the owner, because I think they're sincere that if they can save some windows, they will. I don't want to put a condition where you got to use 2 here and 2 there. I'm happy. We've got to start letting people use a window like they do in other historic zones in the country. That's why Pella and Marvin and Eagle make a replacement window. It's for exact cases like this. And they can make the windows that absolutely match what's there. And they're willing to do that. You know, that's why this isn't about money to me. It's about preserving a part of the community. And they're not saving any money by putting the windows that they're putting in. They're not. These are very, very expensive windows. So anyway, if there's more discussion, fine.
Any more discussion?
I would just make the case that replacing the windows with replicas is great if the window's falling apart, but if the window's still really intact and just needs new window putty or a sash cord or something like that, that seems like counterintuitive that you would rip that out, throw it away, and put in a new window that costs, as you said, $1 gazillion. Why not just be patient and let the house have its windows for a little bit longer and see if you can make something sustainable work? And we're only asking really for the front porch that's under protected status, and it's, I mean, as far as the weather's concerned. And we're not asking for her to not replace all of them, and she has to stick to the codes of replacing all the windows or repairing all the windows. We're just asking her to look at the facade and be conscientious about what those windows really represent, and if they're in good enough condition to last a few more years, what's the harm in that? And I'm open to having them be able to replace all the upstairs windows and any window on the downstairs that is needed repair. But I would just caution that the front windows are important and should be in pretty good condition, and maybe should be held to a little higher standard than just because we will, as the solution.
Are you suggesting that the motion be modified to say all windows except those on the ground floor of the south side of the building? And that would be the extent of the amendment.
If you need to replace them in a few years, if they're absolutely falling apart, then that's understandable, but I think right now that's not the case. So I'd rather keep the house as intact as possible.
Other comments you'd like to add or
I'm
questions?
Perfectly
Any
happy
other
with your
Board
suggestion.
comments, questions? I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion. And I hope this is one that everybody can live with. I move to approve HRC-2025-0241 for the replacement of all existing windows except those facing the south under the covered porch, entry porch. Based on the findings and subject to the conditions of approval included in the staff report, Carson City Historic District guidelines, and consistent with Historic Resources Commission policies.
I'll second that.
We have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those,
Aye.
all those opposed?
Aye.
We have the motion carries. That we're approved. Thank you very much.
Yay. Thank you guys so much. Oh, it's a relief. You guys will be very happy with the work that's being done, and I'd love for you all to come take a look when it's done. Yes, I am going to speak after, because I'm not anxious to,
I don't know. I
spend
don't
this
know
money.
if you went through it while they were the day that we went through the photographs in there of Lake Tahoe, Carson City. It was incredible. I don't know where those photos are going to end up, but it was really something to see. It was amazing. Some of them were colorized. Yeah, I'm colorized back then, and it was just it was fun to go in there. Mike and I were having a little bit of fun in there, so there's a lot of good stuff there.
It's definitely one of the
Have you
the
completely?
public favorites in the neighborhood. It's got some interesting
Well, I
style.
hope that you
That's
guys will all take the time to
pretty
come see
unique,
it when it's
yeah.
done, because we'll be
thank you very
very
much.
proud of it.
Hey, well, you know, Don, I played in the house. I did sleepovers in the house. We spent a lot of years playing with G.I. Joes in the backyard and putting G.I. Joes in boats all the way at the top of Washington Street, all the way down, and they went under the street at Stewart, and we'd collect the parts, you know, by the library. So, yeah, there's a lot of really good memories in that house.
Oh, well, thank you guys so much. I was so nervous coming here.
well, thank you very much. I think we can go to staff report.
Yeah, I don't really have much of anything, just really quickly, your next scheduled meeting is Wednesday, September 3rd at 4 o'clock. Yes. I plan to be.
I see none. Then I'll take a motion for adjournment.
Moved.
So approved. We're adjourned. Oh, I vote, yes, aye. All those against? It carries. We're adjourned.